It's the beginning of March, and we're coming down the stretch run of the NBA regular season as we sit here on March 1st, 2022, with about a little over a month left in the regular season on season 8, episode 24 of the Hooper's Log here on Tuesday, March 1st of 2022. That's right. We're talking about the Eastern Conference today and the siphoning that is of the Eastern Conference. And I wanted to break down today the rationale and the reason why I'm about to say what I'm about to say regarding the top contenders. Should be a relatively short pod today, probably about 20-30 minutes to get you in and out in regards to what to expect. So, February is over. I told you at the beginning of the month what to expect in regards to what we saw in regards to expectations for what to see for the NBA's regular season and who would be the contenders coming out. And I've come to the conclusion that after the month of February, and I'm doing this pod before the Bulls and Heat play on Monday, that the top teams for championship contention out east, that doesn't mean that, in regards to other teams that won't be competitive or fun, I'm not trying to sit here and degrade and devalue that. What I'm trying to get at and what I'm trying to say is that based on what I saw in February, and I mentioned this in episode 20, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, about 4 weeks ago. I brought this up. I said, look out for who the best teams in the month of February are in the Eastern Conference. Those will be the biggest signs and the biggest detail as to who you should expect to see as an Eastern Conference contender. And here's what I was trying to get at. Look at the top teams, right? And look at their best record in February. The Nets fell off. Obvious reasons. Injuries, trades, all those things, right? But you have to navigate these situations as a team in the tough times anyway, right? And with how much time is left in the regular season, with March and basically a week or two into April, and then the play-in games and the playoffs begin, the Eastern Conference is an absolute smorgasbord of unknown, right? We don't know ultimately what's going to happen. We don't have any understanding of what overall is going to play itself out. But in the Eastern Conference, the toughest time of the year, and not just Eastern Conference, the entire NBA, is February for multiple reasons. It's the dog days. It's right before the All-Star break. It's guys coming back from being, hurt, etc., getting healthy. Chemistry changes a little bit, when you take a week off from not playing with one another. Also, trades, injuries. Everyone's exhausted at this time of the year. Everything is so tough from a logistical perspective this time of year in the NBA in the month of February that it's only common sense to sit back and say, okay, whoever performed the best in that brutal of a month regarding the logistical aspect is going to find a way to adjust and play similarly to when they get to the playoffs. And I know March is the stretch run, and I know March changes everything. But the four teams who had the best record out east, and I'm talking like significantly better than everybody else in regards to a couple of games here and there. And I know it's only a couple of games, but it matters down the stretch of how you're playing. Miami, Chicago, Boston, and Toronto. Now, the other three teams, the other three top five teams, because obviously Boston's not a top five team, and we all know Toronto's not. But in regards to how each of those teams played, in regards to the top two teams, Miami and Chicago, those had 8 victories walking into Monday night. Right? So someone's walking out of Monday night with 8 or 9 victories, and they will have had one of the best Februaries in the league in regards to the Eastern Conference. The best team in the entire month of February is the Boston Celtics. They've only lost 1 game, if not 2, because they just lost to Indiana the other night. They went on, like a 7 or 8 game win streak. They only lost 1 game outside of the Indiana game. They've looked fantastic. But Boston is now, in my opinion, a dark horse to be a contender for the East. I am not discounting or ruling out the Milwaukee Bucks. They're defending champs. They deserve to have all the conversation and all the accolades that they get and all the narrative that they want. They also potentially have the best player in basketball right now in that regard. But Chris, what about the Cavs? What about the Philadelphia 76ers? What about those two teams? Those two teams are in the conversation. What about the Nets? I know the Nets completely fell off. I'm not sitting here and saying that the Nets are perfect or that, that they shouldn't be seen as a conversation piece to win a championship or at least be in the conversation in the Eastern Conference. What I'm trying to help you filter out and siphon into the conversation of what we're seeing in the Eastern Conference is I'm trying to help you understand the overall ramifications of who's a pretender and who's a contender. Brooklyn is a pretender. They have completely changed their roster again. Kevin Durant's not coming back till probably late March, early April, and who knows how he's going to play. Everybody has to warm back up after a long-term injury stint, and obviously with Kyrie and the whole New York thing and Ben Simmons, now we're trying to figure out what the hell Ben Simmons is actually doing with his life, and all these things, and the entire team altogether, they completely plummeted in February. They won a couple of games in February. They looked like trash, like an average team. Teams like Toronto and Boston overtook them for legitimate stretches of time. Legitimate stretches of time. They are considered dark horses. Brooklyn, you can still put in the conversation of a potential favorite when they all come back, but we've had this conversation about Brooklyn in the past. When are they all going to come back? When are they all going to be ready? When are they all going to do it? When's it going to happen? We can't bank on that come playoff time. You cannot sit there and bank on anything come playoff time. What have we seen these first 5 months of the season? What have we seen? We have seen the conversation come back around, Brooklyn can. No, that doesn't work come April. You can't just, they might win, they can, you see. No. They are a different team now. Kevin Durant's going to come back into a different chemistry-laden team. Who knows what Kyrie's situation is, and Ben Simmons is a head case. That's just the facts. Listen, I have all the sympathy in the world for people with mental illnesses. I totally understand, and I get it. But if that is what he is dealing with to the nth degree, my heart's out to him. But we're dealing with the matter of the fact of the situation. If his mental illness or his mental disability or whatever is going on with Ben Simmons, which is hopefully legitimate, doesn't matter. I hope he's okay, right? But at the same time, come push comes to shove, come playoff time, if he's not there or available or, into it, it's not going to help Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving only playing away games is not helping them. When they play less home games, granted, they're going to play more home games because they're going to be, behind the scenes in the first round and even further potentially, but it doesn't matter. He hasn't played consecutively with this team. If Kevin Durant's not 100%, there's so many ifs around Brooklyn, it makes me revolve them around a pretender. Look at Cleveland. Cleveland is an unbelievable story, and this does not come from any ill will, because I want Cleveland to succeed as much as anybody, because they are the definition of a team reversing their strategy. They're a team reversing everything they've been known for historically, minus LeBron. Like, really, minus LeBron, they have been a complete dumpster fire. So outside of that, they have been a joke as a franchise. They're finally doing something productive, and it's fun, and I don't want to call them a pretender, but they had a very mediocre February. And it makes sense. They've never been here. They don't know what it takes to succeed at this level, at this high of an ability in the Eastern Conference. Philadelphia. But Chris, James Harden went there. James Harden knows what it takes to win. Joel Embiid's the MVP, and I think Joel Embiid's winning the MVP. But we also have to justify and see Joel Embiid. This has been a conversation for the last 6 to 7 years this guy's been in the league. Stay healthy and stay consecutive and consistent. I don't know. I want him to. I want him to win MVP. He's that remarkable. But he has to stay on the floor. All it takes is a tweak, and they're trash. It's that simple. James Harden cannot carry a team by himself to a championship. That is a fact. He couldn't do it in the West. What makes you think now, with the reigning NBA champions, in regards to the Milwaukee Bucks, that he can do it as well? On top of that, James Harden has not been the same player for the last 14 to 15 months. Ever since the COVID, the 72-game season last year started off, Harden has not looked the same. He's still fantastic. He's still a top 5, top 10 shooting guard in the league, right? He's still fantastic. But he's not the same guy. That's not trying to rip him and say he's trash. It's just the facts. If he had to play the level he had to play at in Houston just to barely miss a finals appearance, now, who's to say he wouldn't have made it in the East if he played in the East, right? Who's to say? But in the all-in-all overarching actuality of James Harden, this Philadelphia squad, with only being there for going into the playoffs 2 months, coming back from injury, having to kind of sort and figure things out, can he carry them to a championship contender? Is that insane to think about? I think it is. On top of that, they had a mediocre February. So, the three teams in the East right now that I can consistently say, and I will say with full-blown confidence in saying that I believe that they can represent the East in the NBA. Miami, Chicago, Milwaukee. Those are full-blown confidential teams that I can sit back and say, yep, all three of them can represent the East right now. But Chris, Chicago's never been here. You've never seen them play. They just had a phenomenal February. DeMar DeRozan's looking more and more and more like a MVP runner-up than I've ever seen. And if Joel Embiid gets hurt, he might win it. That is how well he's playing. Somebody has possessed this man to look like one of the best shooting guards in the NBA, and he will win first-team All-NBA shooting guard this year, and I don't think anybody's going to set it up for debate. He has been that remarkable. He has been the leader of that squad, and he's come in and represented and made them a top upper echelon team in the East and a potential candidate to win the Eastern Conference. He has put them in that category. So has like Zach LaVine. So has the entire roster. Billy Donovan's done a phenomenal job. This team is set up to do big things, and the way they played in February just gives me the confidence in saying so. Miami, what more do you need to say? Not defending Eastern Conference champions, but the bubble, they did it. This whole year, this last month and a half, they have been the team to look at in the East and say, damn, how are they going to lose in a 7-game series minus playing a team like Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks? Minus that team, right? How are they going to lose outside of playing them? They're the 1 seed for a reason. They're looking great, and this February has been a big-time push in that direction. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in all of basketball, and historically, as I might like to say, and there's a reason why they are where they are. Miami's 40-21 for a reason. This is before the Chicago-Miami game. They're at that upper echelon for a reason. They're in the conversation of being an Eastern Conference contender. Look at the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. They are my dark horses. We all know Milwaukee. I don't need to talk about Milwaukee. Milwaukee should be the overall favorites in the East just because of what they did a year ago. Seeding to them doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. They're the defending champs. They have all of the respect. Giannis looks like the best player, most talented player in the league right now, and I don't think anybody would be mad at that. And they're rocking together. They're starting to figure things out. I think Milwaukee's obviously in that same conversation as Miami and Chicago. Even though they had kind of an average February, they know when to turn it on and they know when to win championships. Philadelphia's never been in a championship in this entire era of what's been going on. Cleveland minus LeBron has been no proof of that, and they played an average mediocre February. Knock those two teams out right now in regards to confidence. It doesn't mean it can't happen. I just don't have the confidence in saying that it will. Boston and Toronto. And Brooklyn's in that same category as Philly and Cleveland. Boston and Toronto are two teams that everybody needs to be on watch for in regards to their ability to shake things up. Toronto has played a phenomenal February. They've won 7 games, if I'm not mistaken. Boston has won 9 games in February. And they have hit their stride at the right time. If Boston plays the way they did in February in the playoffs, I would not want to face them if I was any team in the NBA, period. Because they can beat anybody if they play the way they've played the last month. It's just that simple. Do I think they're favorites? No. Do I think if a problem or a hiccup happens here or there with another team and they don't play well and problems happen and those teams can overtake it? Absolutely. And Toronto, outside of Kawhi, really has an entire core of guys who know what it takes to win an NBA championship. They've got an entire core. Pascal, Fred VanVleet. They've got guys on that roster that know what it takes to get through the tough times and win a chip. Boston has gone deep in the playoffs multiple times with current rosters that they have right now. Current guys on the roster that they have right now. So, those are hardcore dark horses. I think Brooklyn, Philly, and Cleveland are full-blown pretenders for this season. For right now. As we sit a month out from the playoffs, they are full-blown pretenders. Don't sit here and be upset when Philly gets dominated in the playoffs or they get beat by teams, whether it's Boston, Toronto, Milwaukee, Chicago, or Miami. Don't sit here and tell me I didn't tell you so. Same thing with Cleveland. Don't sit here and tell me I didn't tell you so. Same thing with Brooklyn. They're pretenders. Doesn't mean they can't do it. Doesn't mean they can't represent. But something tells me that they've got something short going on in their hand and that things are going to be a problem more than later. The Western Conference is a different scenario, right? The Western Conference is in a situation where when you look at them and you look at the overall situation and start point that they are in, we look at the West, right? The Western Conference, with Chris Paul going out and Chris Paul being gone for the foreseeable future till the playoffs begin, I kind of give them a little bit of a safety net because they went to the finals a year ago. They're still way ahead in the standings. The Warriors are looking fantastic. And everybody else trying to chase both of those teams has got to do a lot of work still because both of those teams are still in the driver's seat. The Warriors and Suns are the two teams who have the pedigree and the capability to win a championship if they just turn it on, because they've both been there and they've both done that here recently over the last however many years, right? And Phoenix has done it here relatively recently within the past calendar year. They've been the team you look at and you say, okay, we look at them and we say, okay, Chris Paul's going to be out. This is going to prove why Chris Paul's, first of all, one of the top upper echelon players in the game in regards to his ability to lead his team. But then on the other side of that is the Warriors and where they are and what they're going to be up against, right? So there's a whole lot in the West still to figure out. But as we sit walking out of February, the dominance and the overall arching theme of really the entire West since December, really since Thanksgiving, has been the Golden State Warriors and the Phoenix Suns. Are they going to match up? And from what we saw in February, and I know Chris Paul's out, and that might change the seedings, and I understand a lot could change from here until the playoffs for the West in regards to the top seed. But seeing that and seeing that play out, seeing how the Golden State Warriors are going to get it figured out, and they're starting to get it figured out, seeing how all of that's playing out and starting to go ahead, the Warriors might take the 1 seed. The Phoenix Suns might drop back a little bit. But something still tells me that both of those teams at full strength, excuse me, both of those teams at full strength are the teams to beat in the West, and honestly, for the entire NBA championship. Something tells me this is a year where whoever comes out of the West is winning the chip, and whoever comes out of the East will be battle-tested enough to face them, but I don't know if they'll have the weapons to do so. Now, unless it's Milwaukee, that's obviously different. We know Milwaukee can beat Phoenix. They've done it. But when you look at the overarching theme of the season, both teams out West at the top have been there all year for a reason. And I just don't see a reason and rationale to change that. And that's why when I said, look at the top 5 teams, both conferences, and see where they are. Well, out West, it's relatively stayed the same. Out East, it's changed a lot for different reasons. And that's only within, a 12, 13 game schedule for 14 game schedule for each of these teams, right? There's a whole lot still left to be determined out West. I'm not going to put any kind of deadline on what to look for out West to see who's pretenders or pretenders, because I think we already know who the pretenders and the contenders are out West regarding the top teams. And that's Golden State and Phoenix. We're waiting to see how they match up, right? The West, to be frank, the West this year is kind of boring. Golden State is playing above their skis because of the roster they have in place, right? It doesn't mean they're a bad team. Nobody thinks that Golden State's a bad team. They've still got an incredible roster with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Clay's back now. They've got an incredible team, right? But we have to be realistic. Everybody else on that squad has no idea of what they're doing in the playoffs. It's very similar to Chicago, right? Top list of players, but none of them have any kind of idea what it takes to get into that championship pedigree or that championship echelon. The Warriors do. Phoenix does too. That's why I think both of those teams are in the conversation for being where they are. The Eastern Conference is so fascinating from so many different angles, from so many different story points and bulletin points, that it's really, really, really hard to keep your eyes off of it when the West has just been so dominant, so top-heavy in regards to who the best teams are. So I wanted to get that out of the way. I wanted the Siphon, the Eastern Conference, for you to give you an idea of what you need to look forward to. I generally get a good feeling in about mid-March to who I think should be in the driver's seat for a championship run. I'm watching a lot of games lately. I'm seeing a lot of things take place. I can't pinpoint a team yet, but something tells me in the next couple of weeks, when we get to that midway portion of March, when March Madness begins, when every generic casual fan starts to turn their eyes into the college basketball realm because of the tournament and all that stuff, when everybody starts to take their eyes off the professionals, something tells me some team is going to just speak to me and see, whatever they're doing and whatever they're putting together, they are ready for a championship run. And something tells me it's coming soon. Something tells me in the next couple weeks I'll have an idea, and I'll have a team that I'll be really, really hyped on and tell you need to look out for this team because they might be a team that'll win the chip. And to be honest with you, I got a couple of teams that if they make a couple of runs here over the next couple weeks, if they start jumping in the standings and doing what they need to do, I'm telling you, I might have a feeling on a team. But there's a lot to be determined. The Eastern Conference is siphoning itself out for all I'm concerned. And to be frank, it's exciting because now I feel like there's separate tiers in the East that we can finally look at, minus looking at the standings. We can finally give some kind of credence as to why I believe in certain teams and why you should look at certain teams a certain way. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see it all play out. And we're here on the Hoopers Log. Episode 24 is in the books for Season 8. Episode 25 will be next week. I think we're going to pay homage to the greatest head coach of all time. And we'll talk about that next week as we sit and move forward here on the Hoopers Log. Thank you again. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.